Hey guys, tonight we sail back, well more like shuffle back in creaky sandals, to the sun-warmed shores of the Caribbean where rum once flowed freely. Parrots screamed inappropriate things at sunrise, and a surprising number of ex-pirates tried to figure out how to retire gracefully. You're standing barefoot on the sand. The moon hangs low, silver and heavy. Crickets buzz lazily in the background, while palm fronds sway above. Somewhere out there, waves slap gently against the side of a boat that hasn't moved in days. It's the kind of night where it feels like the stars are holding their breath. And on one of those sleepy islands, more hammock than battlefield, more stew pot than sword fight, an old pirate once asked, "What if we just stopped?" Now granted, you probably wouldn't survive 3 days in this colony. The goats are rude, the fruit ferments in your hands, and the housing, let's just say air conditioning, was still about 2 centuries away. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening from somewhere cozy, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing how far this sleepy fleet has sailed. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You begin your stroll at the edge of an island that doesn't even appear on most modern maps, not because it never existed, but because it never mattered much. It was a blot of green in a sea of turquoise, just large enough to host a few lazy goats, a semi-functioning dock, and a cluster of huts arranged in no particular order. Not exactly the stuff of empire, but to a group of very tired, very sunburnt ex-pirates, it was paradise. It didn't have a name, not officially anyway. The few maps that mentioned it called it by whatever name the nearest ship captain had been drinking when he spotted it. Locals might have called it Coconut Point or Goat Rock or just there, but to the dozen or so retired pirates who stumbled ashore and decided to stay, it was home. Picture this: a man with a wooden leg, too many rings on his fingers, and exactly one working eye, squinting at a stretch of unclaimed land and saying, "This'll do." He's not being romantic. He's got 6 teeth left and a sunburn that looks medically concerning. But he's smiling, because this land isn't about wealth, it's about being left alone. The first thing they do, of course, is build hammocks. Not houses, not walls, not even proper roofs, no hammocks. A pirate could sleep anywhere if there was rum and a slight breeze. Some of the men arrive with treasure chests, not filled with gold, but old books, tea tins, and mismatched cutlery. One fellow famously brought 14 identical silk shirts and a live chicken he claimed could count to 5. No one ever confirmed this, but it became colony lore. They build a fire pit, not for warmth, this is the Caribbean after all, but for cooking and occasionally yelling in too after a few too many drinks. And over time, a system develops. Someone's in charge of gathering coconuts. Someone else is responsible for fishing. Someone else, usually the quiet one, keeps track of which goats belong to whom, though honestly, the goats themselves don't seem to care. There's no flag, no anthem, no real rules beyond don't steal hammocks and don't eat someone else's mangoes unless you ask. These, it turns out, are very serious offenses. You're probably wondering, Seix, how is this possible? Weren't pirates lawless cutthroats? Yes and no. Sea historians often imagine pirates as permanently frozen in action, storming ships, waving cutlasses, shouting things about booty. But real life is longer than any legend, and even pirates get tired knees. One mainstream fact, the so-called golden age of piracy, lasted barely 80 years from the 1650s to the 1730s. After that, many pirates were captured, killed, or quietly faded into whatever passed for retirement. What's quirky is how many of them didn't just disappear, but tried to build little worlds of their own, off-grid, off books, sometimes off their rockers. The island in our story, whatever its name was, became one such haven, not because it was hidden, but because it was forgettable. And in the Caribbean, forgettable was as good as invisible. Now historians still argue whether this was a real colony with structure and purpose, or more of a semi-drunken campout that accidentally lasted 20 years. The records are thin. The locals mostly ignored them. The parrots, if they could talk, aren't cooperating, but artifacts remain. A rusted spoon with initials, a makeshift flag made of patched-together linen, and the remains of what one archaeologist insists is a goat-sized rocking chair. At night, the pirates gather around the fire. They don't tell war stories. They talk about lost loves, sea storms, and the best ways to ripen bananas. They sing songs badly. Someone always burns the fish. And still life goes on. Every so often, a passing ship drops off supplies or passengers. Some join, some leave. One visitor wrote the men here seemed to float through life, like driftwood cracked and weirdly serene. And that really was the point. They'd spent years fighting waves and dodging cannonballs. This island wasn't a reward. It was a sigh, a hammock-shaped pause in history's breath. You hear the dock before you see it, a lazy creak with each breath of the tide. It's barely a structure, more like a few planks nailed together in a moment of optimism. Yet this is where one of the most unexpected stories in pirate history begins. Imagine a pirate walks into a governor's office. No, seriously. He's not there to demand ransom or make threats. He's come to ask nicely. It's the year 1718, and the pirate in question is a man named Benjamin Hornigold. He's cleaned up, relatively speaking. He's wearing boots, his beard's trimmed. He's probably still armed, but discreetly so, and he's about to attempt something few pirates ever dared: diplomacy. Hornigold isn't here for loot. He's here for legitimacy. You wait quietly outside the governor's grand office, eavesdropping like the nosy history traveler you are. Inside, Hornigold is explaining that he and a few other gentlemen of the sea would like to settle down, not in a grand estate, not under noble titles. They just want a slice of land, some chickens, and the right to nap in peace. The governor, newly appointed powdered wig, probably stressed out of his mind, just blinks. Pirates asking for paperwork. Turns out, Hornigold's visit isn't a total surprise. King George VI has offered a royal pardon to pirates willing to give up their swashbuckling ways. The empire needs stability in the Caribbean, not loose cannons. So in exchange for promises of peace, and perhaps a few signatures, men like Hornigold could become respectable. Well, sort of. There's a moment where the governor hesitates, perhaps imagining his office overrun by peg-legged retirees demanding tea breaks and hammock permits, but then he sighs and nods. Paperwork is filed. A not quite official agreement is made. And just like that one of history's strangest social experiments begins, mainstream fact time during the early 18th century, several colonial governments offered pardons to pirates in an effort to clean up the Caribbean. These weren't acts of generosity, they were acts of desperation. Trade routes were clogged, merchants were terrified, and frankly, the Navy had better things to do. Hornigold took the deal. So did many others. Some even became pirate hunters themselves, flipping sides faster than a windblown sail. But others, like our future retirees, had no interest in violence anymore. They took the pardon and vanished into sleepy corners of the sea. Now here's where the story leans into the delightfully absurd. Picture the newly legal pirate leaders meeting under a thatched roof to draw up land assignments. They don't use maps, they use coconuts. This one's mine one sees, placing a slightly cracked fruit on a patch of dirt. And this is Bill's. Bill, unfortunately, is asleep under a banana tree and misses the entire process. What they lack in organization, they make up for in enthusiasm. Someone builds a large sign, misspelled of course, declaring the village Free Rest Cove. Whether it was ever called that by anyone else is doubtful, but the sign remains hung upside down for the next 6 years. They even try a kind of governance. Not quite democracy, not quite dictatorship. Every major decision is decided by shouting over one another until someone gives up. It's remarkably effective. One ex-pirate elected treasurer purely because he owned a functioning bucket keeps the colony's entire bank under a loose floorboard in his hut. And yet, it works. Sort of. Quirky tidbit, one surviving letter from a visitor, mentions the colony's attempt to host a formal dinner. It involved roasted yams, 4 forks between 17 people, and a spirited debate over whether it was rude to bring a parrot as your +1. Of course, not everyone is happy. Some pirates who took the pardon expected land and wealth, not bugs and endless chores. Others resent having to follow any rules at all. If I'd wanted laws, one grumbles, I'd have stayed in England and married Margaret. Still, life on the island settles into a rhythm. Mornings are for fishing or failing to fish. Afternoons are for naps. Evenings involve storytelling and a game involving pebbles and loud accusations that no one quite understands. And somehow, you, our sleepy listener, have become part of it. You trail behind a group of barefoot men arguing about whether bananas should count as currency. You pet a 3-legged dog named Admiral Buttons. You sip something suspiciously strong from a carved coconut shell and pretend not to notice the floating bug. Historians still debate how formal this pirate settlement actually was. Some argue it was just a group of squatters with charisma. Others believe it had rudimentary laws and a surprisingly effective leadership council, possibly involving conch shells and yelling the truth. As always, it's probably somewhere in between. But here's what we do know. Pirates, for all their wild reputations, were still human. They aged. They got sore backs. They missed home or whatever counted as home. And when given the chance to trade a life of blood and salt for one of breeze and mangoes, some of them took it. And so here at the edge of the empire, and the edge of a gently swaying dock, one pirate's polite request becomes the foundation of something utterly bizarre, a retirement colony born of cannon smoke rum and the deep, unshakable desire for a hammock and peace. You wake to the sound of someone trying very unsuccessfully to play a flute made from a hollowed-out gourd. It's sunrise on the island, and the air is thick with the scent of roasting plantains and distant seawater. Around you, the pirate retirement colony is slowly stretching to life, one creaky joint, an overcooked breakfast at a time. You shuffle barefoot toward the main clearing, where a few early risers are already poking the fire-swapping stories and arguing gently over whose turn it is to fix the leaning outhouse. The answer, as always, is not it. Despite the morning haze, you notice something new, a small crooked chalkboard nailed to a palm tree. Someone has scrawled, "Meeting at noon." Topic: chickens beneath it. Democracy, it seems, comes in many flavors. This strange little settlement isn't just surviving, it's evolving. Now, if you're wondering who had the original idea to organize a pirate retirement community, you're not alone. Historians still argue whether it was a formal proposal among former captains or just something that happened when a few lazy sailors refused to leave the beach. There's no signed charter, no crest, no founding document. But oral histories suggest one name keeps bobbing to the surface: Thomas Anstis. Anstis wasn't your typical pirate. Yes, he looted ships, and yes, he probably shouted "arg" once or twice for dramatic flair, but he was also known for his unusually democratic crew and his tendency to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. When Anstis realized the pirate life wasn't built to last, he didn't just vanish, he drifted toward the possibility of a gentler end. One journal entry from a passing Dutch trader describes encountering Anstis in his post-plundering phase. He notes the man wore linen of respectable cleanliness and invited me to dine on yam stew. He spoke little of violence and much of goat breeding. It's not exactly Blackbeard behavior, is it? Back in the colony, Anstis becomes something of an informal mayor, not by vote, but by sheer charisma and the fact that he owns the only chair with a back. He helps settle disputes, mostly about mango theft, introduces a basic barter system. Chickens, such a high value. Buttons, social confusing, and even tries to start a small garden. The squash doesn't survive. The radishes thrive wildly. There are conflicting feelings about this. Mainstream fact time. Many pirate crews operated under surprisingly democratic principles. Captains were often elected and could be deposed if unpopular. Loot was divided according to share systems, and disputes were frequently resolved by crew vote. For all their fearsome reputation, pirates were sometimes more egalitarian than the societies they fled. The pirate retirement colony reflects these values, though filtered through a haze of heat exhaustion, misremembered rules, and the occasional rogue parrot. Every week, or what passes for a week in a place without calendars, the settlers gather for a governance session. These meetings involve a ceremonial conch shell, a suspiciously dented spyglass, and a highly controversial suggestion that someone should write things down. This is met with groans and one man pretending to faint dramatically into the sand. Still, a kind of record-keeping does emerge. A woman named Lila, once a smuggler, and now the colony's unofficial chronicler, begins painting events onto bits of driftwood. They're strung together on vines and hung in the meeting hut. A raid repelled with coconuts. A goat accidentally married in a very confusing ceremony. The time a crate of biscuits was found mysteriously untouched, sparking fears of witchcraft. You pause to admire these official histories. One depicts a man holding up 2 fish and weeping joyfully surrounded by question marks and what appears to be a small tornado. No one will explain it. Quirky tidbit archaeological digs in the Caribbean have occasionally uncovered fragments of decorated wood or carved coconut shells with symbols historians can't fully decode. While it's unlikely these came from Anstis's colony, specifically, they point to a tradition of informal pirate record keeping, often more pictorial than written. Meanwhile, life rolls along. A new arrival shows up, a weathered sailor with wild hair carrying a crate labeled extremely personal items. It turns out to be entirely filled with old maps, most of which are wildly inaccurate. One shows Florida as shaped like a shoe. Another insists there's a landmass called Big Sea Island where only frogs live. Still, he's welcomed warmly and assigned a hammock near the papaya grove. Your own tasks for the day, assigned loosely by whoever had the energy to suggest them, include gathering firewood, checking the fishing lines, and trying to teach the goat not to chew on hat brims. You succeed at none of these. No one minds. At sunset, you sit on the shore with a group of settlers who have decided somewhat arbitrarily that today is a feast day. There's no occasion. It's just Tuesday. Roasted yams, pickled seaweed, and a suspiciously pink drink are passed around. Stories are told. Songs are sung off-key, of course. One elderly ex-pirate leans over to you and whispers, "Retirement's not so bad when you forget what you're retired from." And you think maybe he's right. Evening slips in like a warm cat quiet, lingering a little too interested in your lap. The pirate colony, still technically nameless, but informally known as the place with too many hammocks, is winding down for the night. You're sitting near the communal fire pit, watching someone try to toast bread on a sword. There's a debate happening low and lazy about whether or not coconuts have feelings. One man argues passionately that the ones that fall near your hut are trying to communicate. Someone else throws a shell at him gently, and just when you think the night will drift off into quiet snores and cricket songs, someone clears their throat loudly. It's Jacob, an ex-quartermaster with a thick beard and a voice like a gravel slide. He stands awkwardly holding a rolled-up scrap of parchment. "I got a plan," he says, which is exactly the kind of phrase that used to get people shot at sea. But this time the plan isn't for a raid. It's not even for an escape. It's for a clubhouse, a proper place. He insists for us to play cards and sit indoors when it rains sideways. After a bit of groaning, some yawns, and one unconvincing fake sneeze, the group agrees. A clubhouse. Why not? And so, the next morning, you and the rest of the semi-retired buccaneers begin construction. The tools are not ideal. One saw several knives and a rather ominous hook. But you've got enthusiasm, 4 mismatched nails, and a suspiciously enthusiastic ex-carpenter named Elsie, who claims to have once built a wine rack for the Queen of Spain. "She didn't ask for it," she says proudly, "but I built it anyway." Mainstream fact. Many pirates, once retired or semi-retired, settled into island communities where they contributed to local economies through fishing, farming, and surprisingly competent construction. There are accounts of former privateers helping to build forts houses and even taverns once they left their lives of raiding behind. Back in your little colony, the building effort becomes something of a social event. People bring old planks, coconut husk rope, even a broken mast repurposed as a support beam. There are accidents, minor ones. A toe gets stubbed. A roof beam falls and flattens a chair someone was using as a ladder. The chair does not recover. Still, the work brings people together in that peculiar way shared sweat and mutual confusion often do. Jokes are made. Someone starts singing a sea shanty that quickly devolves into a song about mangoes. You join in on the chorus, despite having no idea what's happening. Quirky tidbit, according to one local oral history, passed down in the Bahamas. A group of retired pirates once constructed a clubhouse entirely from salvaged ship debris. The structure known as the Shell Shack was used as both a social hall and makeshift courtroom. It also apparently had a pet iguana named Governor Snips. You're halfway through tying a support beam with knots you definitely made up when you notice something strange, an argument brewing. Two older pirates, Silas and Miriam, are standing toe-to-toe, voices raised in sleepy outrage. The issue: whether the clubhouse should have a lookout post. For old times' sake, Silas insists. What if the Navy comes? Silas Miriam says we can barely climb trees now, let alone man a crow's nest. They continue bickering, both secretly enjoying it, until Lila the chronicler suggests a compromise: build the lookout. But no one is actually required to climb it. It becomes a symbolic gesture. Everyone is satisfied. And so a tiny, utterly impractical tower is added to the side of the clubhouse. It immediately attracts 3 nesting birds and 1 overly ambitious cat. The whole structure takes 5 days and 17 arguments to complete. When it's done, it leans slightly to the left, smells faintly of rum, and is the single most beloved building on the island. You step inside and find mismatched chairs, a chalkboard with the words "No napping during poker" scrawled across it, and a small shelf someone labeled library, despite containing only 1 book and a particularly large shell. Still, the effect is immediate. The clubhouse becomes the heart of the colony. It's where people come to rest, to talk, to hide from the sun and each other. It's where plans are made and promptly forgotten, where birthdays are celebrated and card games go unfinished when someone inevitably dozes off mid-hand. Historians still debate whether pirate colonies had formal communal structures. Some accounts suggest shared taverns or meeting huts. Others argue most gatherings took place outdoors or under the most convenient piece of shade. The pirate way, after all, favored function over form. But in your sleepy corner of history, this leaning bird-sprinkled clubhouse stands as a symbol of something bigger: cooperation without orders, community without law, and a shared belief that maybe life doesn't have to be so sharp around the edges anymore. That night, a storm rolls in, not a terrible one, just enough to rattle the palm fronds and wake the parrots. You sit inside the clubhouse, surrounded by soft snores and the occasional card fluttering to the floor. And for just a moment, with the wind hushing the trees and the rain tapping the roof, you think this whole mad idea might actually be working. By morning, the storm is gone, leaving everything just a little soggy and a lot more fragrant, wetwood damp canvas and the unmistakable musk of sun-warmed goat. The pirate colony is already awake and surprisingly chipper, despite someone snoring like a dying accordion half the night. It's probably Bernard. It's always Bernard. You head to the clubhouse where today's unofficial activity is checking what didn't blow away. Most things are fine. The lookout post now leans even further to the left, but someone's draped it with a faded flag, so it's rebranded as art. And then just as you're retying your hammock to the less soggy tree, someone shouts, "Boat." You squint toward the ocean. Sure enough, a small sloop is bobbing on the horizon. Its sails are patched, its flag is unthreatening, and its progress is comically slow, like it's being rowed by someone who's unsure which direction they're going. Naturally, the entire colony responds with the usual mix of suspicion and mild curiosity. Several people grab spyglasses. One man climbs a tree and immediately regrets it. Someone else starts cooking because panic apparently pairs best with fried cassava. By mid-morning, the boat arrives. It carries exactly 3 people, a wide-eyed teenager, an elderly woman wearing 7 necklaces, and a very serious-looking man holding a chicken. They introduce themselves not as pirates, but as wanderers seeking the good breeze, which sounds poetic, but also like something you'd say if you'd been kicked out of multiple ports for losing bar fights over chess. You help them tie up their boat and invite them in. After all, hospitality is an unspoken rule here, unless someone shows up with tax forms. Then they get coconutted back into the sea. Turns out they've heard about the colony. Quirky tidbits. In scattered colonial documents from the 18th century, there are rumors of pirate havens along lesser charted coastlines, places where ex-sailors could retire or vanish. Most of these reports were vague second-hand or full of embellishments, but some mention seeing gray-bearded corsairs trading bananas for sewing needles or describe islands with a shocking absence of urgency. Your visitors claim they heard stories from a spice trader in Havana who'd heard from a fisherman in Tortuga who got it from a man with one eyebrow and a scar shaped like Florida. Apparently word has spread slowly in tangled, probably incorrect retellings that somewhere in the Caribbean is an island where pirates go not to fight or steal but to nap and make questionable stew. Some laughed. Others scoffed. But these 3, they built a raft and came to see for themselves. Historians still argue whether pirate retirement colonies were ever real enough to gain reputations. Some believe they were simply groups of outlaws hiding in plain sight, tolerated or ignored by colonial powers too stretched thin to intervene. Others suggest these so-called havens were mostly myth romanticized by later writers who wanted their rogues to have soft endings. But now you're living inside one of those myths, and new people keep arriving. The newcomers are welcomed with the usual island rituals, a coconut toast, a quick rundown of rules. Rule 1, if you find a crab in your hammock, it's yours now, and an awkward hug from Terrence, who's still unclear on boundaries, but means well. The teenager, whose name turns out to be Miguel, is quickly adopted by the colony's unofficial cook. Within an hour, he's peeling cassava like he's been doing it for years, and teaching the older pirates new songs involving goats and questionable metaphors. The elderly woman Granny Netta settles in with Lila the chronicler. They argue about history share stories and start a rumor that the moon used to be closer to Earth, and that's why everyone used to be taller. And the chicken guy, he's quiet, but his bird lays blue eggs, and now everyone wants one. Suddenly, the island feels a little more alive. People who hadn't spoken much before are chatting again. There's a discussion about whether the colony needs some kind of symbol, maybe a turtle with a hat. Someone even suggests renaming the place. Ideas include Snore Cove, the Gentle Reef, and definitely not a pirate hideout. You float through these changes like driftwood in warm surf. Nothing is urgent, but everything matters, just a little. You help repair the visitor's boat. You sit with Miguel one night, listening to him describe his life at sea, the unfairness of captains who hoarded fruit, and his dream of building a treehouse. You tell him it's possible. On this island, nearly anything gentle and strange is possible. And maybe that's the point. Not to recreate society, not to declare independence, just to make space for people to arrive and exhale. As the sun sets on another day, you sit by the fire with a mug of something warm and mostly identifiable. Someone starts a story you've already heard 3 times, but no one interrupts. You stare at the stars. One blinks or winks. You're too relaxed to care. You think about how far you've come, from the chaotic decks of stolen ships to this hammock-filled speck of sand. You remember storms, coins, broken compasses, and now chickens. And as someone snores gently behind you and the waves murmur secrets to the shore, you realize this pirate retirement colony isn't just a place, it's a decision. One you made and remade each quiet day. The morning arrives, not with a bang, but with a sneeze, specifically a dramatic triple sneeze from Bernard, whose hammock is now suspiciously close to the communal pepper garden. He insists it's allergies, not age. No one believes him. You rise slowly, stretching your legs and cracking your back in a way that makes the nearby parrot mutter something vaguely insulting. Today's agenda laundry, probably. Maybe helping Granny Netta organize her collection of extremely confusing shells. And definitely continuing the heated colony-wide debate over whether or not mangoes belong in stew. But before you can even locate your left sandal, which has developed a habit of relocating during the night, something unusual happens. A letter arrives. No, not via seagull or bottle or message tied to a goat, but in the hand of an actual person, an overly cheerful courier named Jules, who rows ashore, waves like he's delivering birthday invitations, and presents a sealed parchment with a dramatic bow. From Port Royal, he says, came by way of 3 ships, a camel, and an extremely unhelpful lighthouse keeper. You open the letter under the clubhouse awning. It's written in elaborate calligraphy, full of titles and salutations you haven't heard since your more wanted days. The sender, none other than the governor of Jamaica. Mainstream historical fact. While piracy was a major concern in the Caribbean during the late 17th and early 18th centuries, colonial governors often had complex relationships with known pirates. Some governors were former privateers themselves. Others quietly tolerated the presence of ex-pirates if it helped keep trade routes stable or if those pirates proved useful in times of war. Your hands tighten slightly around the parchment. The letter isn't threatening, not exactly. It's more curious. The governor has heard rumors of an independent collective of former seamen living peacefully, possibly illegally, on an island of uncertain ownership. He wants to know more. He proposes a friendly envoy, someone to observe, report, and possibly suggest a framework for peaceful legitimacy. In other words, the colony might be recognized, or taxed, or both. And so the letter sends a ripple through the colony, not quite a panic, but close. People gather around the clubhouse waving palm fans and suspicions. Is it a trap? A ruse? Will they send soldiers? Will they confiscate hammocks? Lila calls for a meeting. It's only the second official meeting in colony history. The first one was about a missing mango and ended with 3 people getting mildly sunburned in protest. This one is better, slightly. Arguments rise like bread in a warm kitchen. Some say recognition could be good, finally having maps acknowledge your home, maybe even getting trade privileges. Others insist that once governors get involved, peace tends to evaporate faster than rum left in the sun. Quirky tidbit. In 1726, an informal settlement, believed to be composed of ex-pirates, wrote to a colonial governor asking for mercy and modest farmland in exchange for information about smuggling routes. The governor declined, but not before taking credit for their supposed rehabilitation in his next letter to the crown. Historians still argue whether that letter was ever meant to reach the governor or if it was a ploy to stall a raid. Pirate deception, after all, wasn't just nautical, it was bureaucratic. Back in your colony, the debate continues well into the evening. Granny Netta proposes writing back with an invitation. Let the governor's people see what we really are. Silas wants to booby-trap the beach. No one supports that, but everyone enjoys imagining it. Eventually, a consensus emerges. Send a reply. One that's friendly but vague. Affirm your peaceful intentions. Express willingness to talk, but make no promises. You're nominated to draft it naturally. You've got the steadiest handwriting, and let's face it, you once accidentally charmed a Dutch ambassador during a hostage situation. You sit by the fire chewing the end of a quill and trying to sound dignified without sounding like you want taxes. It takes an hour and 3 false starts, but you end up with something that reads, "To His Excellency, the Governor, warmest salutations from the island of..." Well, we haven't quite named it yet. Perhaps you'll have suggestions. We are, as rumored, a community of retired mariners. We seek no trouble, claim no allegiance, and ask only for sun stew and silence. Should you wish to send a representative, we welcome peaceable visits with or without chickens. Yours in hammock-bound sincerity. Your name probably spelled incorrectly in most wanted posters. The courier laughs when you hand it to him. He promises to deliver it with style. You don't ask what that means. You probably don't want to know. After he rows away, the colony settles into something resembling calm. People resume their tasks. The mango stew debate continues oblivious to possible diplomacy. Bernard takes another allergy nap. You sit under the stars later, watching the tide roll in like a lazy cat. Maybe things will change, maybe they won't. But tonight at least, you still belong to yourself. Morning dawns soft and golden, spilling light over the swaying palms, and the patchwork of hammocks strung between them like lazy spiders' webs. You wake with a sense of curious expectation, as if the island itself is holding its breath. Not the kind of breath that makes you panic, but more like when you're about to hear a secret whispered just for you. The reply from the governor's office takes weeks to arrive, long enough for you to almost forget the letter you sent, and long enough for the colony to debate the finer points of hammock repair techniques 3 times over. But when it finally arrives, it's delivered by a solemn-faced sailor who looks suspiciously like he might fall asleep standing up. The letter is formal, of course, with fancy flourishes and titles that feel both distant and oddly personal. The governor expresses appreciation for the colony's peaceful intentions and suggests sending an envoy to explore terms of alliance and trade. There's a polite warning about maintaining order and allegiance to the crown, which, judging by the colony's collective eye roll, sounds like bureaucratic code for pay your taxes. This news sparks something unexpected hope, not the fiery, reckless hope of a pirate on the chase, but a softer, steadier kind like the glow of a lantern swinging gently in the breeze. The colony gathers to discuss the envoy's visit. Plans are made not for battles or grand speeches, but for welcoming guests with the kind of hospitality only islanders can offer: fresh fruit, homemade bread, and an unspoken understanding that no one should talk about taxes at the dinner table. Mainstream fact. Historical pirate havens often walked a fine line between outlaw freedom and colonial control. Some, like Nassau in the Bahamas, became semi-official trading posts where pirates could negotiate pardons or sell loot under watchful eyes. These places were as much about diplomacy as they were about daring. You help prepare the island, tidying the clubhouse and gathering small gifts: a jar of spiced rum, a woven basket of exotic herbs, and a wooden carving of a turtle wearing a tiny captain's hat. It's a token of friendship and a little joke rolled into one quirky tidbit. In a surprising turn of events, some pirate colonies reportedly staged elaborate welcomes for visiting officials, complete with mock naval battles and pirate pageantry. The intent was less to intimidate and more to charm, like a pirate-themed reality show centuries before cameras. As the day of the envoy's arrival approaches, the colony buzzes with quiet excitement and subtle nerves. Who will they be? A stern officer with sharp eyes, a kindly diplomat with a penchant for storytelling, or perhaps someone just as weary of bureaucracy as you all are. When the small boat finally appears on the horizon, it's captained by a young woman named Eleanor, whose smile is both genuine and faintly mischievous. She steps ashore with a notebook and a curious sparkle in her eye. Eleanor's visit quickly turns into a series of long, slow conversations beneath the shade of the clubhouse. She listens more than she talks, scribbling notes while sharing stories of distant ports and impossible seas. The colony, in turn, shows her their way of life, not just the hammock naps and mango stews, but the quiet routines, the shared histories, the dreams tucked away like treasures. Historians still debate how much influence such envoys had on pirate settlements. Some argue they were mere observers, documenting curiosities for their superiors. Others believe they played crucial roles in shaping agreements that blurred the lines between outlaw and citizen. You watch Eleanor with a mix of curiosity and cautious hope. Here is someone willing to see the colony not as criminals or myths, but as people trying to find a different kind of freedom. As night falls, the fire crackles low and stories rise like smoke. Eleanor joins in, her voice soft and steady. The colony listens relaxed and alive, and somewhere in the shadows, you think you hear the faintest sound of a lullaby carried on the breeze, an island song for those who found their place, however unexpected, in the vastness of the sea. The next morning stretches out slow and warm, as if the sun itself is taking its time waking up. You find yourself wandering toward the garden, where the smell of ripe mangoes mingles with salty sea air, and the soft hum of bees drifts lazily over the flowers. It's the kind of peaceful moment that makes you forget about the world beyond the island, a world full of rules, taxes, and people who don't understand why hammocks are essential. But just as you settle under the shade of a tamarind tree, Eleanor approaches notebook tucked under her arm and a smile that's part mischief, part exhaustion. She's been observing the colony closely, and now she wants to talk about something deeper, about identity, belonging, and what it really means to be retired from a life at sea. You listen as she asks questions you hadn't quite considered before. What makes this place a home? Is it the absence of violence, the freedom from pursuit, or simply the company of others who understand the strange loneliness of a pirate's past? You shrug, knowing the answer isn't simple. Maybe it's all of those things, or maybe it's something quieter, a shared agreement to live softly, to let time drift without urgency. Mainstream historical fact. Some pirate communities evolved into surprisingly stable settlements, where former sailors created new social orders, blending freedom with cooperation. They formed their own codes, elected leaders, and then even established informal justice systems, though none involved trial by plank. Eleanor shares a story from her travels about a forgotten island in the South Pacific where ex-whalers and traders created a village built around storytelling and slow fishing, resisting the rush of colonial expansion. It sounds familiar, like a distant cousin of your own colony. Quirky tidbit. It's said that one pirate retirement colony once held an annual Day of the Lost Compass, a festival celebrating the art of getting hopelessly lost but finding joy in the unexpected journey. The celebrations involved rum-tall tales and a surprisingly competitive coconut rolling contest. Historians still argue whether such festivals were common or simply romantic inventions by later writers seeking to soften the harsh realities of pirate life. The conversation drifts into the afternoon, moving from practicalities, like how to repair a leaky roof without nails, to reflections on freedom and constraint. Eleanor listens intently occasionally, jotting down notes, or laughing softly at a joke about the colony's unofficial mascot, a goat named Captain Whiskers, who seems to have mastered the art of napping in inconvenient places. Later, as the sun dips low, you join a small group gathered around the fire. Someone starts telling a story about a pirate who once traded a chest of gold for a single perfectly ripe mango. The tale unfolds slowly, with pauses for laughter and the occasional "remember when" that trails off into comfortable silence. You realize this is what makes the colony special, not the grand adventures or stolen treasures, but these quiet moments of shared history and gentle humor. Here the past isn't a burden or a badge. It's a thread weaving everyone together in a tapestry soft enough to rest your head on. As the night deepens, Eleanor thanks the colony for its hospitality and honesty. She promises to carry these stories back to the mainland, not as sensational gossip, but as reminders that even pirates can find peace. You watch her leave the next morning, the boat cutting through calm waters, like a dream slipping away. The colony returns to its rhythm, slow, steady, and just a little bit mischievous. And you, lying back in your hammock, realize you're exactly where you're meant to be. Days melt into weeks, each one wrapped in the island's gentle embrace, like a soft quilt that muffles the noise of the world beyond. You trudge through routines that, while simple, feel surprisingly rich. repairing sails patched so many times they're more patch than sail, gathering fresh water from the spring that never runs dry, and listening to the endless chorus of waves tapping the shore. The arrival of Eleanor marked a subtle shift. Conversations now often circle around ideas of legitimacy of recognition, not the kind that comes with uniforms or court orders, but a quiet acknowledgement that this colony exists and belongs. It's a strange feeling, half hopeful, half like waiting for a letter you're not sure you want. One afternoon, as you sit near the fire, a newcomer appears at the beach's edge. Not a pirate, not quite a sailor, but someone with an air of cautious curiosity. He calls himself Marcus and claims to be a cartographer sent by the governor to map the island and its people. You watch as Marcus steps onto the sand, carrying his instruments, an old compass that spins lazily, a battered sextant, and parchment sheets that flutter like nervous birds in the breeze. His presence sparks a mix of excitement and wariness. The colony is averse to outsiders, especially those with tools that seem designed to shrink their world into lines and labels. Mainstream fact. In the 18th century, cartographers were vital to colonial expansion, mapping unknown territories for the crown's benefit. Their maps often determined the fate of islands and settlements, sometimes erasing native claims in favor of imperial designs. Marcus sets up a camp near the water, spending hours sketching coastlines, noting flora and fauna, and occasionally asking questions that reveal a surprising empathy. He listens more than he demands the answers, and slowly a fragile trust forms. Quirky tidbit legend has it that one famous cartographer accidentally included a sea monster in his map, an enormous squid named Old Inkblot that supposedly protected pirate waters. The creature never existed, but the story spread so widely that sailors would avoid certain routes out of superstition. Historians still debate whether such mythical creatures were deliberately added to maps as pirate deterrents or merely the result of cartographers' creative licenses. Over time, Marcus becomes less of a stranger and more of a chronicler, someone who doesn't just draw lines on paper, but captures the spirit of the colony. He even joins in the daily mango stew debates, siding surprisingly often with Granny Netta's secret recipe. You find yourself sharing stories with Marcus under the stars, the island alive, with the soft croaks of frogs and the distant call of nocturnal birds. You talk about freedom exile and the strange peace that comes with stepping away from the chaos of the seas. One night, he admits that mapping this place feels less like a job and more like honoring a hidden world, a world that refuses to be swallowed by the tide of history. You nod, knowing exactly what he means. Here, in this quiet pocket of the Caribbean life, moves not by the ticking of a clock, but by the rhythm of the waves and the warmth of shared stories. As dawn breaks, the island hums with a promise that the colony's tale, like the sea, is ever-changing, yet always steady beneath the surface. The colony settles into an easy rhythm with Marcus's presence, the cartographer weaving himself into the tapestry of daily life like a soft thread. You notice how he listens, not just to stories, but to silences, the pauses between words that carry their own meaning. It's as if mapping the island involves more than measuring coastlines. It requires understanding the heartbeats beneath the soil. One morning, you join Marcus by the mangrove swamp, where the air is thick with the scent of salt and earth, and the branches twist like ancient gnarled fingers. He's studying a curious plant with bright red flowers and spiky leaves, murmuring its name, Mangle Rojo, as if testing its weight on his tongue. You lean closer, curious. The plant, he explains, is said to have mild medicinal properties used by locals to soothe aches and even calm restless dreams. You imagine it as a secret ally, quietly helping the colony rest easy through humid nights. Mainstream historical fact: mangroves played a crucial role in coastal ecosystems and were valued in many maritime cultures for their protective roots, which shielded shores from erosion and provided materials for shipbuilding and medicine. Marcus shares that early explorers often overlooked the ecological importance of such plants, focusing instead on treasure maps and trade routes. His sketches include detailed notes on the mangroves and the surrounding flora, capturing a world that thrives quietly alongside human stories. Quirky tidbit: in some pirate lore, certain mangrove forests were rumored to be hiding spots for secret treasures, with stories of chests buried beneath tangled roots. While no such hoards have ever been found, the idea lingers like a whispered legend. Historians still debate whether these tales were simple fabrications to deter treasure hunters or coded messages used by pirates themselves. As you both walk through the shaded labyrinth of roots and leaves, you notice the subtle sounds: the distant splash of fish, the rustle of birds, and the gentle sway of branches creaking against the breeze. It's a peaceful symphony, a reminder that the island's life is as layered and complex as its history. Later, back at the clubhouse, the colony gathers to share a meal. The mango stew debate has reached a new level of fervor, with Marcus weighing in on the merits of adding a pinch of allspice, a suggestion that causes more heated chuckles than serious consideration. The night winds down with laughter and stories, the kind that make you feel less like an exile and more like a guardian of a secret world. You think back to the letter from the governor, the arrival of Eleanor, and now Marcus, the island's history, unfolding like a slow, deliberate tide. As you settle into your hammock, the scent of mangrove flowers mixing with sea salt, you realize that this colony isn't just a refuge. It's a living story, a gentle rebellion against the rush of time, where every day is a page written with patience, humor, and quiet hope. The days continue to unfold in their slow, reassuring rhythm. You find comfort in the predictability, the sun rising warm and unhurried, the waves murmuring secrets to the shore, and the colony's soft murmur of daily tasks. Yet beneath this calm surface, subtle changes ripple through the community, sparked by Marcus's presence and the slowly building connection to the outside world. One morning, as the sky blushes with dawn, you notice a small gathering near the old ship's hull that has long served as a meeting place. The colony's elders, stoic and weathered like driftwood, are deep in conversation with Marcus, whose earnest gestures punctuate the air like gentle waves. You learn they're discussing the possibility of creating a rudimentary library, a collection of books, charts, and journals gathered from passing ships and donations. The idea feels both ambitious and tender, a way to preserve stories and knowledge for future generations who might never leave the island, but still yearn to understand the wider world. Mainstream fact: pirate communities often valued literacy and record keeping more than you might expect. Many pirates could read and write, which helped them negotiate codes, share news, and maintain their own versions of justice. The notion of a library seems almost revolutionary for a place once defined by lawlessness, yet here it feels like the natural next step in the colony's evolution, a bridge between past and future. Quirky tidbit. There's a tale likely apocryphal about a pirate captain who hid a book of poetry among his treasure-believing words could be just as valuable as gold. The book, The Buccaneer's Lament, reportedly inspired generations of sailors to dream beyond the horizon. Historians still argue whether this book ever existed or was simply a romantic myth spun by 19th century writers eager to soften the pirate image. As the idea of the library spreads, you find yourself collecting old papers and maps, folding them carefully into bundles to protect against the island's humidity. It feels like building a quiet monument to the colony's resilience, a place where even forgotten voices can be heard. At night you hear the soft crackle of firelight, mingling with whispered readings and the occasional hum of a sea shanty. The library, though humble, becomes a beacon, a gentle invitation to explore not just the island, but the vastness of history itself. You realize the colony is no longer just a refuge from the world, but a seedbed of stories, knowledge, and dreams growing slowly under the Caribbean sun. With the library idea taking root, the colony's mornings begin to hold a new kind of quiet energy. You notice people lingering by the meeting place, fingers tracing worn book spines, or turning fragile pages with the care one might reserve for treasures. There's a gentle reverence in these moments, as if the colony is learning to treasure not just gold or rum, but words and memories. One afternoon, while sorting through a bundle of old journals donated by a passing trader, you discover an entry that sparks a flicker of surprise. It's a captain's log from a merchant ship that once sailed near the island, filled with observations about the colony's inhabitants, noting their habits, kindness, and an unusual respect for the sea. You read aloud the captain's quiet admiration for how the colonists seemed to live in harmony with the tides, neither rushing nor resisting. The entry goes on to describe a peculiar tradition of singing to the ocean. At dawn, a ritual meant to honor the spirits of the sea and ask for safe passage. Mainstream fact: many maritime cultures have long held traditions of ocean offerings and songs believing the sea to be a living entity that demands respect and reciprocity. The singing ritual, you learn, was passed down from the colony's earliest days and remains a subtle, almost secret act, one that binds the community in shared gratitude and hope. Quirky tidbit: some islanders believe the ocean can carry whispered wishes across vast distances, and that the softest, most heartfelt songs have the power to calm storms or guide lost sailors home. Historians still debate whether such beliefs influenced maritime navigation practices or were primarily spiritual comforts. As twilight deepens, the colony gathers by the shore lanterns, glowing softly like fireflies caught in glass jars. You join in the singing, your voice blending with others, a gentle wavering hymn that feels less like a performance and more like a conversation with the sea itself. The sound carries over the water, mingling with the distant calls of night birds and the rhythmic pulse of waves. It's a moment suspended between past and present, a reminder that life here moves with tides seen and unseen. Afterward, you sit quietly watching the stars blink awake one by one. The colony feels alive with stories, spoken and unspoken, woven through the ocean's endless song. And as your eyelids grow heavy, you understand that this slow shared ritual is as much a part of the colony's history as any treasure or battle. It's a lullaby for the restless soul, sung softly under a vast forgiving sky. The days stretch long and languid, wrapped in the colony's comforting routine, yet a new sense of purpose begins to pulse beneath the surface. The idea of permanence, of crafting a life not defined by escape or survival, slowly takes hold. You watch as gardens flourish, where once only scrubby bushes dared grow, tended by hands calloused from years at sea, but now gentle with seedlings. You wander through rows of vegetables and herbs, the air fragrant with basil, and thyme, feeling the steady warmth of the sun on your skin and the soft, steady buzz of insects going about their tiny lives. There's a quiet satisfaction in the earth's response to care, a tangible reminder that life here is more than a pause. It's a new beginning. Mainstream historical fact. Early modern settlements often relied on sustainable gardening practices, adapted to local climates, blending indigenous knowledge with European crops to create unique agricultural ecosystems. In the colony's gardens, you spot an unusual plant yucca, its roots promising hearty sustenance and storied history. The elder Netta shares tales of how yucca once fed entire communities across the Caribbean and Latin America, its resilience matching the spirit of the colony itself. Quirky tidbit. There's a humorous legend that a pirate once tried to smuggle yucca disguised as cannonballs, causing quite the confusion when customs officials discovered the weaponry was actually edible tubers. Historians still debate whether this tale is fact or fiction, but it remains a favorite yarn told during slow afternoons under swaying palms. As you help harvest the ripe fruit, the conversation drifts to dreams of future generations, children who might never know the sharp edge of a sword or the sting of saltwater spray on a hurried escape. Instead, they'd know the warmth of sunlight and the quiet joy of tending soil, of watching seeds grow into food and flowers. Later by the fire, the colony shares stories of gardens from distant homelands, the scents and flavors mingling in memory like an unseen spice blend. You catch yourself smiling, feeling the weight of history lighten just a bit carried away on the island breeze. The colony is no longer just a resting place. It's a cradle for stories, life and hope, wrapped in the slow unfolding of days filled with earth, sun, and sea. One afternoon, as the sun dips low and the sky softens into shades of lavender and gold, a curious visitor arrives. Not from the sea, but from the air, a wandering albatross, gliding silently over the waves before settling on a nearby rock. Its feathers gleam like parchment under the fading light, and for a moment it seems to embody the freedom the colony has long sought. You watch the bird with quiet fascination. Albatrosses are known for their incredible endurance, able to soar thousands of miles without rest, a living symbol of endless journeys. Yet here it is, choosing this small island as a brief respite from its vast voyage. Mainstream historical fact. Sailors have long revered the albatross, considering it a good omen or a protector at sea. Killing one was believed to bring bad luck, a superstition famously immortalized in Samuel Taylor Coleridge's the rhyme of the ancient mariner. The colony embraces the bird as a gentle visitor, a living reminder of connection between the vast ocean and their little world. Marcus sketches the albatross carefully, noting the patterns of its wings and the play of light on its feathers. Quirky tidbit. Some pirate legends claim that albatross feathers were sewn into hats as charms for good fortune and safe passage, though wearing one might also make you the subject of endless sea shanties. Historians still debate whether such superstitions had any practical impact on maritime behavior or were simply colorful tales to pass long nights at sea. As twilight deepens, the albatross takes flight once more, its wings casting slow shadows over the colony. You feel a subtle shift, as if the bird carries not just itself, but the colony's hopes across the endless horizon. That night, under a blanket of stars, the colony's stories seem to stretch further, like the albatross's wings, spanning distance and time in a gentle arc of shared dreams. And as you close your eyes, the soft flapping of wings lingers a soothing rhythm to carry you toward sleep. The colony's life, rich with quiet rituals and unfolding stories, now turns to one of its more unexpected features, the curious tradition of island justice. You find yourself sitting near the fire, listening as Granny Netta explains the system, a blend of old pirate codes and gentle island innovation designed to keep peace without harsh punishments. She speaks softly of the Council of Whispered Words, a group that meets in the evenings to settle disputes not with swords, but with dialogue stories, and sometimes a touch of humor. You picture the scene, a circle of weathered faces lit by flickering flames, voices low and steady, weaving conflicts into resolutions as easily as threading beads onto a string. Mainstream fact: pirate codes often emphasized fairness and shared decision-making with captains elected and punishments agreed upon by consensus, a surprisingly democratic system for its time. Quirky tidbit. One favorite method of settling minor disputes was the feather's toss, where a feather was thrown into the air and the direction it drifted indicated which side's argument held sway, a whimsical tradition. Some islands adapted with variations involving seashells or palm fronds. Historians still debate how much these informal justice systems influenced early modern legal practices in maritime communities. You realize that this gentle justice is part of the colony's heart, an effort to hold the fragile balance between freedom and order without tipping into harshness or chaos. As night deepens, the soft murmur of council decisions blends with the ocean's lullaby, a reminder that even in exile, community and kindness can thrive. And as you settle back into your hammock, the island's calm justice hums softly in your thoughts, a reassuring presence as sleep beckons. The colony's peaceful rhythm is occasionally stirred by the arrival of unusual visitors, like the wandering botanist who shows up one misty morning. She's a slender woman with eyes full of curiosity and a satchel bursting with strange seeds and dried herbs collected from distant lands. You watch her carefully examine the plants growing wild on the island, her fingers tracing the veins of leaves as if reading a secret language. She introduces herself as Isabella and speaks softly of her quest to understand the healing powers hidden in nature. The colony listens with polite fascination, though some are skeptical of her scientific jargon. Yet you find yourself drawn into her stories, tales of plants that can soothe fevers, ease insomnia, or even inspire dreams. Mainstream historical fact: early modern explorers often doubled as botanists, collecting and cataloging new species that would later become vital medicines or crops in Europe and the Americas. Isabella shares a particularly intriguing specimen, a small blue flower called sleep's whisper, rumored to have gentle calming effects when brewed into tea. You picture the delicate petals steeping, slowly releasing soft fragrances that coax restless minds toward rest. Quirky tidbit: there's a legend that sailors once brewed a similar flower's petals into a potion before long voyages to calm their nerves and invite peaceful sleep. Though skeptics argue the effect was mostly placebo, historians still debate the accuracy of such botanical remedies and whether their reputations were more cultural myth than medical fact. As evening falls, Isabella joins the colony's circle by the fire, carefully preparing a tea from the local flora. The aroma drifts like a gentle promise, inviting even the most restless souls to pause and breathe deeply. You sip the tea and feel a slow, soothing calm settle over you, a reminder that sometimes the island's magic is not in gold or legends, but in the quiet gifts of the earth beneath your feet. The colony's slow days are occasionally punctuated by stories shared around the fire, some born of fact, others woven from the imagination like fine nets cast wide into the dark. Tonight, you listen as old Thomas the colony's unofficial storyteller recounts a peculiar tale about the phantom lantern said to appear on moonless nights along the shoreline. He describes the lantern as a faint, flickering glow bobbing just above the waves, guiding lost sailors back to shore or leading them deeper into hidden coves. You can almost see the dim light dancing on the water, feel the salty mist against your skin, and hear the distant echo of a mournful sea shanty carried by the breeze. Mainstream historical fact: lighthouse technology and maritime signaling evolved over centuries, with early versions using oil lamps or candles to warn ships of dangerous reefs and guide safe passage. Quirky tidbit: some island legends claimed the phantom lantern was the restless spirit of a sailor who never found his way home, forever wandering the waters, with a glowing light to comfort the lost. Historians still debate whether such ghost stories originated as navigational warnings or grew purely from folklore and sailors' superstitions. As Thomas's voice trails off into the night, you feel the subtle interplay between history and myth, a reminder that even the most practical inventions can inspire stories that gently haunt the imagination. You lean back, watching the stars twinkle overhead, their distant light reflecting the same quiet mystery as the phantom lantern on the water. And as sleep begins to pull you under, you think of the colony's many stories, each one a soft lantern guiding you toward dreams. A few weeks later, the colony's routine is pleasantly interrupted by a small festival, a day set aside to celebrate the sea that both nurtures and challenges them. The preparations are gentle and unhurried handmade decorations fashioned from shells and driftwood, the soft weaving of palm fronds into garlands, and the distant rhythm of drums beginning to pulse like the island's heartbeat. You wander among the crowd, noting how the festival blends old pirate customs with island traditions. A dance performed barefoot on warm sand songs, that tell of long voyages and safe harbors and simple feasts featuring freshly caught fish and tropical fruits. Mainstream historical fact: maritime festivals were common in many coastal communities, serving as a way to honor the sea, give thanks, and strengthen communal bonds. Quirky tidbit: one popular festival game involves coconut bowling, where players gently roll coconuts toward a target of stacked shells, an activity said to mimic the careful navigation needed at sea, but played with laughter rather than urgency. Historians still debate how much these celebrations helped maintain social cohesion among pirate and seafaring communities, or if they were primarily occasions for rest and revelry. As you join the dancing, feeling the steady warmth of the sun on your skin and the rhythm in your bones, the colony feels alive with a quiet joy, a collective breath taken together before the gentle return to daily life. As night falls, lanterns flicker like stars descended to earth, casting soft shadows that mingle with the lull of waves. You realize these moments of celebration, woven into the slow fabric of island life, are as vital as the tides, steady, reassuring, and endlessly renewing. In the days following the festival, the colony's focus gently shifts toward the construction of a communal bathhouse, a place meant not only for cleanliness, but also for relaxation and conversation. You watch as sturdy beams are raised and palm leaves woven into a thatched roof, the structure growing slowly beneath the steady hands of the island's craftsmen. The bathhouse becomes a quiet sanctuary where warm water flows from natural springs, steam mingling with the salty air. You imagine the feeling of sinking into the soothing warmth, muscles loosening, worries drifting away, like the gentle smoke curling from a nearby fire. Mainstream historical fact: public bathhouses were central to many cultures, from Roman thermae to Japanese onsen, serving as places for socializing, healing, and ritual cleansing. Quirky tidbit: some islanders jokingly insist the bathhouses where the best gossip flows, second only to the ocean breeze itself, which has a way of carrying secrets with a wink. Historians still debate whether such communal bathing practices influenced social hierarchies or served mainly as egalitarian spaces for all community members. You catch yourself smiling at the thought of pirates and settlers alike sharing stories over steaming waters, the usual harshness of life softened by warmth and companionship. As twilight wraps the island in a gentle embrace, the bathhouse glows softly with lantern light, a beacon of comfort and connection amidst the vast ocean. You feel the day's fatigue melt away, replaced by a serene contentment that whispers of simple pleasures and slow, steady rhythms. And as you settle down for the night, the thought of warm water and friendly chatter lingers, a soothing balm to carry you into restful sleep. As the seasons turn, you notice how the colony's relationship with the sea deepens, not just as a source of food or travel, but as a living presence woven into their daily lives. Fishermen cast their nets with practiced patience, while others gather seaweed along the shore, drying it carefully for use in everything from medicine to fertilizer. You spend a morning with Eli, a gentle soul who claims to understand the ocean's moods. He speaks softly about the tides and currents, reading the subtle shifts in wind and wave, like a book written in invisible ink. Watching him, you realize the colony has developed its own quiet language of survival, part instinct, part tradition, part whispered wisdom passed down through generations. Mainstream historical fact: coastal communities have long relied on detailed environmental knowledge for fishing and navigation, combining observation with storytelling to guide their livelihoods. Quirky tidbit: Eli shares a curious superstition that touching a strand of seaweed tangled in your hair brings luck and calm seas, though others say it just means you've been a little too close to the tide pools. Historians still debate how much such folk knowledge influenced formal maritime navigation techniques, or was preserved primarily through oral culture. As the sun dips low, you join Eli on the shore, the soft splash of waves a constant companion. The ocean seems to breathe with you, its vastness both humbling and comforting. You realize the colony's life is a delicate dance, with this endless blue, sometimes wild and unpredictable, other times gentle and forgiving. And as night descends, the sea's quiet song lulls you closer to sleep, a timeless melody carrying both memory and hope. One particularly serene morning, you find yourself drawn to the colony's modest library, a collection of weathered books, maps, and journals carefully preserved in a shaded hut. It's a quiet refuge, filled with the soft rustle of turning pages and the faint scent of aged parchment mingled with sea salt. You leaf through a battered journal belonging to Captain Elias himself, discovering sketches of distant lands and notes on the strange customs he encountered. His handwriting is precise, almost tender, revealing a mind curious, not just about conquest, but about understanding the world's many colors and contradictions. Mainstream historical fact: many explorers kept detailed logs and journals, which today provide invaluable insights into early modern global encounters and cross-cultural exchanges. Quirky tidbit: some of Elias's notes mention a laughing fish, a mysterious creature said to emit a series of clicks and whistles resembling human laughter, though naturalists have yet to confirm its existence. Historians still debate whether such descriptions were embellishments born of long voyages or actual observations of rare marine life. As you read late into the afternoon, the library feels like a bridge connecting past and present, land and sea myth and reality. You sense the colony's story isn't just one of survival, but of curiosity, wonder, and quiet reflection. And as the sun sets, casting long shadows across the dusty pages, you tuck the journal away with a sense of reverence, ready to carry its secrets into the evening's calm. The colony's slow pace means even small inventions become celebrated events. One morning, you witness the unveiling of a new sundial crafted carefully by the island's resident tinkerer, Old Benji. Its face is simple, made from polished driftwood and marked with delicate notches designed to tell time by the shifting shadow of the midday sun. You watch as the colony gathers to see the sundial in action, a quiet marvel of ingenuity in this place where hours often melt into each other like the tide. It's a gentle reminder that even in exile, the need for order and rhythm persists. Mainstream historical fact: sundials have been used for thousands of years, with early versions dating back to ancient Egypt and Babylon, marking the passage of time in a way that connected humans to the cosmos. Quirky tidbit: Benji claims his sundial has a secret. If you align it just so the shadow forms a shape resembling a smiling crab, a small nod to the island's abundant marine life. Historians still debate how widely sundials were used by sailors and pirates given the challenges of constant movement and shifting daylight at sea. As the sun arcs overhead, you feel the slow, steady passage of time, enfolding the colony, each moment a small anchor in their shared journey. You realize that here even something as simple as a shadow can hold meaning quiet, precise, and endlessly comforting. And as the afternoon fades, the sundial's soft shadow stretches across the sand, marking not just time, but the gentle rhythm of life on the island. The colony's culinary habits reveal as much about their adaptation as their resilience. You join the island's cook Mira as she gathers fresh ingredients from the garden and shoreline her movements slow and deliberate under the midday sun. She shows you how native herbs blend with old world spices brought from distant ports, creating flavors both comforting and new. You watch Mira prepare a stew simmering with island vegetables and salted fish, the aroma weaving through the air like a soft invitation. It's a dish that tells a story of survival fusion and the quiet joy found in simple meals shared under open skies. Mainstream historical fact: many pirate and settler communities adapted their diets by combining native ingredients with familiar recipes, resulting in unique culinary traditions. Quirky tidbit: Mira jokes that the secret to the stew's flavor is a pinch of luck and a lot of patience, a recipe passed down from sailors who believed good food could keep bad spirits at bay. Historians still debate the extent to which such culinary blends influenced broader food culture in colonial regions. As you sit beside Mira, tasting the rich stew and feeling the warmth spread through you, the island's kitchen becomes a heart beating steadily, quietly, with each shared meal. And as evening shadows lengthen, you realize that here in these simple acts of cooking and eating, the colony weaves a tapestry of belonging comfort and hope. As dusk settles, the colony gathers once again for one of its gentlest traditions, the evening storytelling circle. You find yourself sitting cross-legged among familiar faces, the soft glow of lanterns casting long, flickering shadows that mingle with the night air. The stories told here are not of battles or treasure, but of quiet moments of the sea's moods, of stars guiding lost travelers, and of the simple wonders hidden in everyday life. Tonight, old Tomas revisits a tale about the island's first night, how the settlers, weary but hopeful, lit their fires and listened to the ocean's whisper. His voice is low and steady, each word a thread weaving the past into the present, inviting you to imagine the flickering flames and salty breeze that welcomed them home. Mainstream historical fact: oral storytelling has been a cornerstone of community life throughout history, preserving knowledge, culture, and identity across generations. Quirky tidbit: some storytellers here insist that if you listen closely, you can hear the ocean's own stories blending with human voices, a soft symphony carried on the wind. Historians still debate how oral traditions evolved alongside written records and their influence on preserving histories that might otherwise be lost. As Thomas's tale winds down, you feel the comforting weight of shared memory, a reminder that stories connect us, soothe us, and keep us grounded. The night deepens, wrapped in quiet voices and the gentle rhythm of waves. And as you drift towards sleep, you carry with you the soft glow of stories, lighting your way through the darkness. One morning, the colony awakens to a rare visitor, a seabird with striking plumage resting quietly near the shore. It becomes a gentle symbol of freedom and endurance, inspiring conversations about journeys both physical and emotional. You watch as the bird preens its feathers, its calm presence a reminder that life continues beyond the island's edges. You learn that sailors once believed such birds guided lost ships to safety, carrying messages from distant lands or spirits watching over those at sea. The colony's children gather around, fascinated by the bird's delicate movements and mysterious aura. Mainstream historical fact: seabirds have long been used by mariners as natural indicators of land proximity and weather changes during long voyages. Quirky tidbit: folklore holds that if a seabird lands near your home, it brings good fortune and a peaceful night's rest, though some insist the bird is simply tired from a long flight. Historians still debate how much these beliefs shaped maritime navigation versus serving as comforting myths. As you watch the bird take flight, soaring above the gentle waves, you feel a quiet hope, a promise that the colony's story, like the seabird's journey, is part of a much larger, ever-unfolding tale. And as night approaches, the image of that serene bird stays with you, a soft beacon guiding your dreams. The colony's quiet days occasionally bring unexpected challenges, like the slow encroachment of invasive plants from the mainland. You watch as a group carefully works to remove tangled vines threatening the native flora, their movements deliberate and steady, almost meditative. This slow battle against nature's relentless advance becomes a metaphor for the colony itself, resilient, adaptable, and patient. You notice how each person approaches the task with care, knowing that preserving their fragile ecosystem means preserving their way of life. Mainstream historical fact: invasive species have historically disrupted ecosystems worldwide, often introduced unintentionally through trade and colonization. Quirky tidbit: some islanders whisper that the vines are mischievous spirits, testing their resolve, though most just see stubborn plants and hard work. Historians still debate how early colonies balanced ecological preservation with the demands of survival. As the sun dips low, casting long shadows across the clearing, you feel the quiet determination that sustains this small community, a slow but steady resistance against change and loss. And as darkness falls, the gentle rustle of leaves becomes a lullaby, carrying you deeper into the calm embrace of the island night. In the final days before your departure, the colony holds a small ceremony, a simple gathering to honor the journey taken and the bonds forged. You stand among friends, the air thick with salt and the scent of burning sage, feeling a profound sense of belonging that has grown quietly but steadily. The ceremony is unhurried, songs hummed softly, hands joined in silent thanks, and stories shared one last time beneath a sky alive with stars. It's a moment of gentle closure, a tender pause before life's next chapter unfolds. Mainstream historical fact: many seafaring and settler communities marked significant transitions with ceremonies that combined ritual music and storytelling. Quirky tidbit: some participants wear small tokens, A shell here, a feather there, each chosen for its personal significance and believed to carry protective blessings. Historians still debate how much these ceremonies influenced community cohesion versus being private acts of remembrance. As you look around the faces, you see reflect resilience, hope, and quiet joy, the living legacy of a place built on slow days and steady hearts. And as the final embers glow, you feel a peaceful calm wash over you, the island's story settling softly into memory. The soft murmur of the ocean lulls you further into stillness, the stars above winking gently as if to bid you good night. The island's steady heartbeat slows alongside your own, a soothing rhythm that carries you through the quiet moments between waking and dreaming. Remember the stories whispered by the wind, the warmth of shared fires, and the calm strength of the sea. Let your thoughts drift like the gentle tide ebbing and flowing until only peace remains. Here in this tranquil corner of history, you are safe embraced by the slow, steady pulse of a world both old and new. Now rest easy. The pirate's tale has reached its gentle end, and your own journey into sleep begins.